Hey guys, it's Brian with Retired at 40. Today I'm going to share with you my favorite freeze drying recipe. It's really quick to make, it's inexpensive, it only has 8 ingredients. You can make it in about 25 minutes. It tastes good and it's good for you. That's hard to do. And it freeze dries really well and reconstitutes really well with just boiling water. Today we're doing freeze dried split pea soup. So if you've followed this channel for a while, you know that there are a couple of requirements that I have for freeze drying. I like things that rehydrate really well. I like things that are easy to make. I like things that are inexpensive to make. And this meets all of those requirements. This is my favorite freeze dried recipe. We eat a lot of split pea soup around here. It's just one of those type of meals that just really hits the spot on a chillier day, and it's filling and it's real hearty, and you only need 8 ingredients. So you're gonna need an instant pot, or if you don't have an instant pot, you can use a crock pot. You can also do it on the stove, and you're just gonna have to alter your recipe just a little bit. And I've actually altered this recipe that we normally make just a little bit for freeze drying, just so we know that it's gonna freeze dry well. So you're gonna need some vegetable broth, some garlic powder, an onion, some celery, some carrots, split peas of course, and a little bit of ham. So I'm gonna get right into this. We're gonna go to saute on our Instant Pot, and while this is warming up, we're gonna get some vegetable broth ready. We're using vegetable broth in the place of olive oil, which is what I would normally use. That's what we're gonna use to saute our onions and our ham, but we're gonna use vegetable broth instead because we don't want that oil in our freeze-dry recipe. So when this gets good and hot, we're gonna wanna put just a little bit of vegetable broth in the bottom here to keep what we're putting in next from burning. But you want a total of 5 cups of vegetable broth, and then you're gonna throw in half of an onion or up to a whole onion, which is what I'm doing. We like ours really oniony, if it's a small onion especially. And then you're gonna do 1 cup of diced ham. And make sure that your ham is diced and cut so it's as lean as possible, since we're freeze drying. We don't want that extra fat in there. So we're gonna saute this just like you would like in a skillet or in a pan, frying pan, and just get some of that flavor out of it before we add in the other ingredients. While you're waiting for that to saute for a little bit, you're gonna grab 2 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, and you're gonna use one of my favorite new kitchen gadgets. Any of you around in the 1990s will remember this, the salad shooter. I think this is probably the new and improved version. But one of the most annoying things I think about freeze drying is the prep work that goes into it, because you're cooking usually large amounts of food, that you're also cutting a lot of stuff up at one time. This kind of just does it all in one shot. So you can dice your carrots up a little bit thinner than that if you want, and your celery. We like the bigger chunks, but we're gonna add that in right now. And then I'm gonna add in the rest of our 5 cups of veggie broth. And then 2 cups of the raw split peas. This wouldn't be split pea soup without the split peas. And then we're gonna do a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then just a little bit of salt. We're gonna mix that all together. We're gonna place our lid back on. Make sure your valve is closed. Then we're gonna go to pressure cook. We're gonna go to 20 minutes. And that's really all there is to it. We'll check back in when this is done. So I have not made this recipe since I got my large freeze dryer. I have made it in the medium. So we're gonna see how far this recipe will go on one large tray, and then you can see how many times you'll need to multiply this recipe, how many batches or whatever, to get up to 5 trays for a large. And then you can also use that to figure out which one you need for the medium. But while this is cooking, take a minute to subscribe to the channel if you've never been here before, or if you have and you have not subscribed, do that right now. Just click that rocking chair or the YouTube play button. While you're there, click the bell to get notifications. That'll turn on your notifications. It'll tell you when we release a video, which is every Sunday at 8 a.m. And as long as you're close to that bell, you might as well click the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful. It really helps the channel with the YouTube algorithm. It helps freeze drying videos get to freeze dryers or people who are interested in freeze drying. And another thing that helps out freeze dryers is is the Facebook group and our MeWe group. It's just Retired at 40's freeze drying group. And we do weekly giveaways of free freeze drying items, so you might as well take advantage of that. And before we check on our split pea soup, if you're considering purchasing a freeze dryer, please consider using our affiliate link. It helps us maintain the best social media groups. It helps us keep this YouTube content coming, and in turn that helps the whole freeze drying community. Okay, so this is all finished. I'm gonna vent this. And normally if you want this to thicken up, you would just let it sit for a little bit longer if you want a thicker consistency, but since we're freeze drying it, it's not gonna matter because you can change that in the rehydration process. So we're just gonna take it out. We're gonna see how full we can get a tray or 2 trays or however many out of one batch, and then I'm also gonna double up this recipe and see what 3 batches will get us, see how far it'll get us in a large, and then you can kind of compare that with a medium as well. But let's see how our split pea soup looks first. Looks really, really good. This is actually the perfect consistency. You do want to make sure that your split peas are cooked all the way. You want to make sure that your peas aren't chunky or crunchy still. You kind of want that split pea soup to kind of make a paste almost, is what it reminds you of. So one thing that I want to do before I put it onto the trays is I want to see how many cups prepared this is going to be before I put it on the trays. That'll give us a better idea of how much the recipe is going to make, and it'll help us with our rehydration as well. So it looks like it's right about 8 cups. So if you're going full to the brim, which I don't always recommend, especially with something like this, a large tray is going to hold 8 cups and a medium tray is going to hold 6 cups. So I think this recipe should probably, I think about 6 cups is probably just about right on a tray. We'll see here. All right, so this has 7 cups on it. I think that's probably about as much as you want to put on there. Probably the maximum. I don't think I would want to overfill it. There's about a cup left in here. And I'm using our pre-cut parchment paper from freezedryingsupplies.com. This not only helps with the cleanup of something like this, but it also helps it from sticking to the tray, because a lot of stuff like this, it just wants to stick to that stainless steel, and it's kind of a pain to get it to separate from it when you're getting ready to bag it or put it into a ball jar or a container or whatever you're doing with it. For the rest of these trays, I'm going to double up my recipe. I've never doubled it up before. I'm sure it should be fine as long as your Instant Pot or your crock pot or whatever is big enough. But I'm going to double this up, and then I'll finish out the rest of these trays. So I did a single batch of that recipe on the first go round. The second go round I doubled it up. I got 3. They spaced really nice and evenly across 5 large trays. So in a large, I would recommend a 3x of that recipe that I just gave. But for these guys, it's time to pre-freeze. All right, well, we'll get these frozen up. Again, this is probably about 24 servings. Such an inexpensive recipe and so easy to make. Really good freeze drying recipe. All right, we're ready to go. We're all frozen. And I can tell this stuff is going to do really well. It's the kind of stuff that's just going to turn into a powder. And anything that turns into a powder, you know, is just going to do really well when you rehydrate it. And that's that. We'll see you in a little bit. All right, we're all done. 37 hours. I'm going to bag this up because it's late tonight. I'm going to meet you tomorrow. We're going to take it upstairs. We're going to give it a taste test. We're going to rehydrate it. And I'll see you tomorrow. Split pea turned out really, really good. It turned into a powder, which I love. Let's take a look and see. The freeze-dried foods that rehydrate the best are always this consistency. They're great for long-term storage because they're just, you can tell if they have moisture in them. But anything that just powders down like that, you could even get this down to even finer powder if you wanted to. So the only thing left to do now is to rehydrate it, give it a taste test. You're probably wondering why I have a blender out to rehydrate. I've been wanting to try this for a while, and this is a perfect opportunity. A Vitamix, actually, the blades move so fast in it that it will warm up whatever's inside of it. So I want to try and rehydrate inside of the Vitamix with some water and see, as opposed to just boiling water, see how that works. can see the steam coming off. You can tell that it's warm now. I did a couple more servings in here just so I would have enough to make this worthwhile, and you can see that it makes it nice and creamy too. The thing about split pea soup is you either love it or you hate it. You know, a lot of people can't get past how it looks. Kind of looks like baby food or baby poop actually. But as always, the most important part is how it tastes. And that's awesome. And actually going into the Vitamix like that, it makes the texture a lot nicer. It kind of just blends everything together. Split pea soup never gets old for me. Like I said, you either love it or you hate it. But I think that about does it for today. Another win in my book. This is my favorite freeze drying recipe. In the meantime, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.